There are 7 Marvel Rivals characters that perfectly represent the 7 deadly sins, and today we'll be going over each of them, starting with greed. Tony Stark is known for his huge wealth, but when it comes to greed, there's a group that embodies it in a different way: the Guardians of the Galaxy. This team initially came together for one reason: value, whether it be credits, bounties, or rare artifacts. But one Guardian perfectly embodies the sin: Rocket Raccoon. Rocket has always been driven by profit and survival, willing to steal, bargain, and scavenge for the best possible rewards. As a genetically enhanced creature, he grew up as an experiment, making him deeply distrustful and always looking out for himself. His obsession with weapons, tech, and money is a result of his harsh past, leading him to seek control over his own fate through material gain. From trying to sell Star-Lord's orb to stealing Anulax batteries from the Sovereign, Rocket's actions are often guided by personal gain rather than heroism. Even amongst his closest friends, he struggles with emotional vulnerability, masking his feelings behind greedy tendencies and snarky remarks. A great example of Rocket betraying the Guardians for money and self-interest comes from Guardians of the Galaxy 2008, number 7 through 10, during the War of Kings storyline. The Guardians of the Galaxy had been through one disaster after another. Between Star-Lord's questionable leadership, constant galactic wars, and the team's increasingly dangerous missions, Rocket had started wondering if this whole saving the galaxy thing was even worth it. So, Rocket made a decision: a side deal with a Kree weapons dealer who had connections to some high-paying buyers. Rocket figured he'd sell some intel on the Guardians' operations, nothing too serious, just enough to cash out and walk away with a stash of high-powered weapons. He could always find another crew, or go solo. When the credits transferred into his account, Rocket didn't feel bad. It was just business. A few days later, while the Guardians were regrouping at their hideout, an ambush hit them hard. The Universal Church of Truth, a ruthless, fanatical cult, came out of nowhere, overwhelming them with superior firepower. Groot and Mantis were captured, and the rest of the team barely made it out alive. The Guardians thought they already knew who had sold them out. Rocket tried to play it off, saying it wasn't him. Star-Lord cut him off. His voice was cold. "You don't betray your family, Rocket." For the first time, Rocket felt guilt. He had messed up. After fighting alongside his friends, everyone ignored him, making him realize he was a greedy character, craving for value instead of his own family. Wrath is the second deadly sin, representing pure, unrelenting rage. Some might argue that the Hulk embodies wrath with his uncontrollable rage, but there is one character who truly represents wrath at its most dangerous. With over 48,000 confirmed kills, the Punisher doesn't just lose control, he chooses his wrath every single day. In the futuristic landscape of Tokyo 2099, the Punisher emerges as a relentless force against organized crime factions. This iteration of the Punisher is Frank Castle, whose war on crime has spanned decades, thanks to an experimental serum that has vastly extended his lifespan. His unwavering commitment to eradicating criminal elements has made him a vital member of the new Marvel Knights, collaborating with leaders like Black Widow in their crusade against threats such as Doom 2099. Before his relentless campaign in 2099, Frank Castle was a dedicated family man and a decorated Marine. His life took a tragic turn when his wife and children were brutally murdered in the crossfire of a mob hit. This devastating loss ignited an unquenchable thirst for vengeance, transforming him into the Punisher, a vigilante who takes the law into his own hands, delivering uncompromising justice to criminals. This transformation from a law-abiding citizen to a ruthless enforcer highlights the depth of his personal tragedy and the intensity of his wrath. One of the best examples of the Punisher's wrath at its most extreme is in the comic Punisher Kills the Marvel Universe, 1995. This alternate universe story pushes Frank Castle's rage and thirst for vengeance to the absolute breaking point. In this brutal one-shot, Frank Castle's family isn't killed in a random mob hit. Rather, they're caught in the crossfire of a superhero battle between the Avengers, X-Men, and alien invaders. Unlike the main timeline, where he directs his fury at criminals, this version of Frank holds superheroes responsible for his family's deaths. Driven by a bottomless pit of anger, he embarks on a planned extermination of every hero and villain in the Marvel Universe. There's no justice, no law, no mercy, only revenge. He slaughters Spider-Man, Wolverine, the X-Men, the Hulk, and even cosmic beings like the Silver Surfer, proving that his wrath has no limits. He outsmarts and kills even cosmic-level beings, showing that his wrath is methodical, not mindless. By the end of the comic, Frank has killed every single major figure in the Marvel Universe, including himself. After realizing he has nothing left to destroy, he turns the gun on himself, proving that his wrath isn't just directed at others, it's self-destructive, all-consuming, and unstoppable. Unlike superheroes who struggle with their morality, Punisher doesn't hesitate and never stops. His rage fuels him every single day, making him the ultimate embodiment of wrath in its deadliest form. Gluttony isn't just about food. It's about an unending hunger for something, a need so overwhelming that it controls your very existence. And no one in Marvel Rivals embodies this better than Venom. Venom is always hungry. The symbiote constantly craves sustenance, whether it be food or violence. When bonded with Eddie Brock, its hunger only grows stronger, pushing him into battle after battle, always looking for the next fight, the next rush, the next prey. The symbiote literally feeds off its host's adrenaline, meaning the more it fights, the stronger it gets, and the more it wants to fight. Venom's obsession with Spider-Man stems from a gluttonous need to prove its superiority, to consume its former host in both body and soul. Even when not with Eddie, the Venom symbiote seeks out new hosts, devouring their will and pushing them toward violence, unable to ever be truly satisfied. In Marvel Rivals, Venom is a powerhouse, a relentless force on the battlefield, always smashing his way through enemies. Fighting fuels him, and he never wants to stop. A great example of Venom's gluttony in the comics comes from Venom: The Hunger, 1996. In this story, Venom's hunger spirals out of control. The symbiote, which normally feeds on adrenaline, starts demanding more and more sustenance, and Eddie Brock can barely control it. At first, Venom tries to satisfy the hunger by eating criminals, consuming them in a grotesque and brutal way. But it's not enough. The more he eats, the more he craves. His hunger becomes an obsession, and he starts losing himself to the symbiote's growing needs. At one point, Eddie even tries to resist, but the symbiote forces him to devour human flesh, showing that the hunger isn't just physical, it's psychological. By the end of the story, Venom realizes that he will never be satisfied. No amount of fighting, no amount of killing, no amount of feeding will ever truly end the hunger. This makes Venom the perfect representation of gluttony, not just for food, but for violence, destruction, and the endless need to consume. Venom is one of Marvel's most complex anti-heroes, defined by an insatiable hunger. Born from the Clintar, a race of alien symbiotes, Venom's very existence is built on bonding, consuming, and overwhelming its hosts. At first, the Venom symbiote was merely a tool, Spider-Man's sleek new black suit, enhancing his strength and agility. But the more it bonded with Peter Parker, the more it fed off his emotions and desires, eventually corrupting itself in the process. When Peter rejected it, the symbiote sought revenge, bonding with Eddie Brock, a man equally consumed by his own hatred for Spider-Man. This bond between Eddie and the symbiote is what truly defines Venom. Venom is a hungry monster. Lust is often associated with sexuality and physical desire, and in Marvel Rivals, many characters carry a seductive presence. But none of them suited better than Wolverine. Now you're probably asking yourself how this stumpy ball of hair even attracts women. Well, he's Wolverine. Wolverine has always been a man driven by instinct, his need for battle, survival, and of course, desire. His long life, filled with war and tragedy, has made him emotionally guarded, but his passion and physicality have led him into countless relationships. Women are drawn to him not just for his rugged, rebellious nature, but for the deep emotional intensity he hides beneath it. His love for Jean Grey is perhaps the most well-known example. From the moment they met, there was an undeniable attraction between them, despite her commitment to Cyclops. He wanted her not just because of physical desire, but because she represented something he rarely found, someone who truly saw past the beast within him. Even in the first X-Men movie, when given the chance to leave the X-Men behind, it was Jean who made him hesitate. She had a hold on him, one he couldn't shake, and no matter how much he tried to play the lone wolf, his heart always seemed to lead him back to her. But Jean was far from the only one. Throughout his life, Wolverine has been involved with numerous women, from Mariko Yashida to Mystique. His connection with Storm went beyond friendship, and at times, it became something much more. Even when he wasn't looking for love, women seemed to gravitate toward him, whether because of his fierce loyalty or untamed nature. For Wolverine, lust isn't just about physical attraction, it's about the way he craves connection, but is doomed to lose it. Whether it's Jean, Mariko, or any of the others who have fallen for him, Wolverine has had plenty of naughty moments in the comics, but one of the most infamous was in X-Men: The Ultimate Guide and Wolverine, number 126, where he hooked up with Mystique. the same shape-shifting mutant who has been both an enemy and ally over the years. In one particular storyline, Mystique seduces Logan, playing off their shared violent tendencies and animalistic instincts. Unlike many of his past romances, this wasn't about love or deep emotional connection. It was pure, raw attraction. Given Mystique's ability to shift into anyone, the idea of Wolverine being with someone who could take on any form adds an even wilder layer to their relationship. Another notable example is from Uncanny X-Men number 394, where Wolverine has a one-night stand with Domino after a night of drinking. It was one of those rare moments where Logan let his guard down and indulged without overthinking. And then, there's Wolverine in the X-Men number 6, where it's revealed that Logan owns a secret casino and brothel called the Hell Hole, a place where he has spent plenty of time indulging in the more hedonistic aspects of life. While he plays the role of the gruff loner, he's never been one to completely avoid pleasure, whether it's drinking, fighting, or something a little more risque. Wolverine's relationships are usually passionate, intense, and complicated, but every now and then, he lets go of all the baggage and simply enjoys the moment, sometimes with questionable choices. Envy is a powerful force. In the Marvel Universe, few embody envy more than Magneto, a man whose entire existence has been defined by what mutants lack in a world that favors humanity. A survivor of the Holocaust, Eric Lenscher saw firsthand the cruelty of mankind. He watched the powerful oppress the weak, and when he discovered his own mutant gifts, he swore that mutants would never be at the mercy of humans. But beneath his ideology, there's always been a bitter envy, a jealousy of what Homo sapiens have always had: security, dominance, and control. One of the most striking moments of Magneto's envy appears in House of M. When given the chance to reshape reality, he doesn't just make mutants equal, he makes them superior. His House of M is a world where Homo sapiens live in the shadows of their mutant overlords, a mirror of the suffering mutants have endured for so long. This isn't just about survival, it's about revenge, about taking what was never given to him. In God Loves, Man Kills, Magneto watches as humans rally around William Stryker, an extremist preacher leading a holy war against mutants. It is a stark reminder that no matter how hard mutants fight, the world will always see them as lesser. Unlike Professor X, who clings to hope, Magneto harbors a seething resentment. Why should mutants continue begging for a place at the table when they have the power to take the whole table for themselves? Even in X-Men Red, where he stands beside Jean Grey trying once more to build a sanctuary, that envy never fades. He sees the luxury of human existence, the ease with which they inherit the world, and he knows that mutants will never have that, not unless they carve it out with their own hands. In Marvel Rivals, Max Eisenhart, the Magneto from Rivals reality, has been given a second chance, but in a future that once again denies him and his people the power they deserve. When Krakoa is hurled into the year 2099, Magneto finds himself in a world where mutants are still struggling, still clawing for survival, while humanity flourishes. The cycle continues. He envies what they have: stability, safety, the right to exist without question. And as always, he is ready to take it back by force. With Wanda Maximoff by his side and a reforged Cerebro enhanced with chaos magic, Magneto begins a new conquest, gathering lost mutants from across time and space. He is no longer content with small victories. If mutants cannot have what humanity has, then he will ensure humanity has nothing left to take. Magneto has never been a man of mere dreams. His envy has always driven him to action, to war, and this time, he intends to win. Sloth isn't just laziness. It's a refusal to act when the world demands more, and no hero in Marvel Rivals embodies sloth more than Thor. Thor, the god of thunder, is a warrior born, a champion of Asgard, and a protector of realms. Yet, despite his immense power and noble lineage, there's always been a part of him that resists change, a reluctance to take responsibility until it is forced upon him. Thor's greatest flaw is not weakness, but his unwillingness to evolve until he has no other choice. Throughout his long life, Thor has relied on his raw strength and divine right rather than wisdom or strategy. He has spent centuries reveling in battle, drinking, and feasting, ignoring the deeper responsibilities of kingship and leadership. Even when Odin saw his arrogance and cast him down to earth, it wasn't wisdom that humbled Thor, it was loss. Stripped of Mjolnir, forced to live as a mortal, Thor only learned the value of duty when everything was taken from him. Sloth isn't just about doing nothing, it's about ignoring growth until it becomes unavoidable. One of the best examples of Thor's sloth comes from the unworthy Thor storyline. There was a time when Thor believed he was untouchable, that no force in the universe could make him doubt himself, but that changed when Nick Fury whispered a single truth into his ear. Gorr was right. In an instant, Mjolnir rejected him. Thor was no longer worthy. For the first time in his immortal life, he couldn't simply smash his way through a problem. He was lost, broken, and instead of rising to reclaim his identity, he wandered, refusing to fight, drowning in self-pity. He let others pick up the mantle. Jane Foster became Thor, proving that the power is never about bloodline or might, but about heart. Thor had been content to coast on his birthright, but the moment it was taken, he had nothing left. For months, he lived in the shadows, watching as others fought battles that once would have been his. He only rose again when Asgard itself was on the verge of ruin, proving once more that Thor never acts until the pain is too great to ignore. In Marvel Rivals, Thor finds himself at another crossroads. As the fabric of time collapses and heroes are forced into an unfamiliar future, Thor initially treats it as just another grand adventure, a test of strength rather than a crisis that requires true leadership. He laughs in the face of danger, fights for the thrill of it, and fails to see the storm coming. It isn't until Asgard is threatened, until Loki is lost in time, until his people suffer. Only then does Thor finally take the battle seriously. Just as in the comics, Thor's story is one of delayed responsibility. He doesn't seek wisdom until his strength fails him, he doesn't embrace duty until his people are suffering, and he doesn't fight for more than glory until he has no choice. Thor isn't weak, he isn't lazy. But he is slothful, because he only becomes the hero he is meant to be when the cost of not doing so is unbearable. Genius, billionaire, visionary, Avenger. Tony Stark isn't just great, he knows he's great. From the moment he stepped onto the world stage, Tony has always believed he was the smartest man in the room. His mind moves faster, his ideas reshape the future, and his tech defines the battlefield. And because of that, he trusts himself more than anyone else. But this unshakable confidence is not just belief, it's pride. A pride so overwhelming, so absolute, that it has shaped Tony Stark into the man he is. He doesn't just think he's better, he believes he's the only one who can save the world. And that belief, it's going to cost him everything. Iron Man's pride isn't just about arrogance, it's about control. Tony Stark looks at the world and sees problems only he can fix. He doesn't take orders, he doesn't ask for permission, because why should he? He's Tony Stark. He creates Ultron, believing he can build an AI to protect the world, only to unleash an extinction-level threat. He backs the Superhuman Registration Act, convinced he's leading heroes to a better future, only to tear the Avengers apart. He prepares for every war, every disaster, every threat, but never stops to question if he should. Tony Stark doesn't doubt himself, and that's exactly why he fails. The Superhuman Registration Act was meant to protect the world. Tony Stark was convinced of that, and if Captain America, his closest ally, stood in his way, then Steve Rogers was wrong. Tony was so certain in his beliefs, so unwilling to admit fault, that he led the charge against his own friends. He hunted heroes, built prisons, turned allies against each other, because he truly believed, deep down, that he was the only one who saw the truth. And then, Cap died. There was no victory, no celebration, just Tony Stark standing over the body of the man he once called a friend, finally realizing maybe he wasn't always right. Tony wasn't content with protecting the Earth. He needed to control everything. So, he gathered the smartest minds in the universe: Doctor Strange, Reed Richards, Black Bolt, Charles Xavier, Namor, and Black Panther. And together, they made the big decisions in secret. They exiled the Hulk, they erased memories, they played gods, because they thought they were the only ones smart enough to do it. And when it all fell apart, when their arrogance led to the destruction of entire worlds, Tony still couldn't admit he was wrong. Because to Tony Stark, being wrong isn't an option. In Marvel Rivals, the multiverse is breaking, timelines are collapsing, forces beyond human understanding are reshaping reality. But Tony Stark doesn't believe in fate. He doesn't believe in destiny. He believes in himself. And so, even as the universe spirals into chaos, he refuses to accept that there are things beyond his control. Even if it means fighting gods, even if it means defying reality itself, even if it means making the same mistakes all over again. Because Tony Stark can't accept that he isn't the one who can save the world. His mind is his greatest strength. His mind is his greatest weakness. And in the end, his pride might be the very thing that dooms him.